May I please ask our delegates if they are ready? The next, Dr. Moradio.
All right, thank you. Good evening,
We are
good
encouraging each other.
afternoon, good morning.
Afternoon.
It's actually evening over here. So I'll be discussing about digitalization, customer satisfaction, and the African context. Okay, so everybody knows what, at least we are familiar with the word digitalization. So I'll go ahead. So this paper uses the system theory of organization to elaborate on the use of robotics and automation from the manufacturing perspective as digitalization. And it's a kind of an exploratory review paper. So a structure of digitalization in a firm has a service implication through customer service enhancement. And that's what the focus is actually on, how digitalization can help to improve operational performance of manufacturing firms and also the impact on customers through customer satisfaction. So the use of robotics or automation for production process in the manufacturing industry usually enables manufacturing firms to put in place structures designed to achieve higher operational performance, competitive advantage, efficiency, effectiveness, and customer satisfaction. So in this study, there's a review of certain of this concept, digitalization. We looked at the state of digitalization in Africa and in Nigeria in this study. So we look at the objectives. Presently, businesses and generally business executives are leveraging digital capability, transforming three critical areas of their organizations, especially the customer experience, operational processes, and business models. So the focus of this study actually is the emphasis on the effects of the use of digital technologies on manufacturing operations, and also looking at the implications on customer service or satisfaction from the perspective of the system theory. So concisely, this study adds to the body of knowledge by focusing on the effects of digitalization on industrial processes, customer satisfaction, and most importantly, the inclusion of the system theory perspective. Also, we in this study, there's an elaboration on the state of Africa's digitalization. So we look at the research questions. The first one is, what is the state of digitalization in Nigeria and Africa at large? And also the second one, what is the system view of digitalization from the operational performance and customer satisfaction orientations? So we look at certain definitions. The first one is digitization. Before we can talk about digitalization, we have to mention digitization. Digitization is simply the conversion of data from analog to digital representative. But when we are looking at the business model, when we include operational processes, then we are moving from digitization to digitalization. So digitalization can be defined as a process of improving, enabling, or transforming business models or processes through the use of digital technologies and digital data, generating new type of value, especially in the value chain where we are looking at the supply chain of manufacturing firms. What is the system theory? We've been talking about system theory. The system theory approach to management emphasizes the interdependence and interrelationship among the various parts of an organization, both external and internal. So it's a kind of holistic view where we're talking about the system theory. So we are trying to link digitalization, operational process, and customer satisfaction. Before we can talk about the enablement of operational process, which now affects our customer satisfaction. We need to look at these 5 important factors. Accessibility. Customers look for ways, are always drawn to products or services that have ease of access, that shows simplicity and convenience. Then engagement. Customers are also drawn to interactive and sensory processes. Then we look at the connect. Also, customers can have connection with friends through different social media platforms where they can exchange messages and the likes. Then we have customized. Customers are also drawn to customized experience in this digital age. Then we have collaborate. And customers are also drawn to collaborating in projects or goals. Example is the cooperation hubs that are so common these days. So let's look at digitalization and the African context. There's increased access to telecommunication, financing, electricity supply, and the collaboration of private and public sector, and improved customs and regulation, especially when we look at these African countries. We have the Seychelles, Mauritius, South Africa, quite a number of them. But apart from the aforementioned, aforementioned countries, we also have Ghana, Tanzania, Uganda, and the likes. However, despite the improvements of digitalization over the years in Africa, the continent is still plagued by digital divide when we compare it to the Western countries. Because if you look at the rate of digitalization in Africa, it's less than 50% compared to the global average, which is actually greater than 60%. Apart from the digital divide between the Western nations and Africa, we also have internal digital divide between African countries. And also we have digital divide between the genders. The male gender have more access to digital technology more than the female gender in Africa. In Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa are at the forefront of digitalization because there are so many cooperation hubs, digital financial platforms, easier access to internet and the likes. However, when we compare the 3 African countries, Nigeria is still struggling when we look at Kenya and South Africa. To increase digitalization in Africa as a whole, the increased access to information and communication technology is key. So let's look at this. You can see from this diagram, it shows how sparsely distributed digitalization, the rate of digitalization is within Africa. We can see Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa. Actually, Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya are the forefront. You can see other nations that are still not, so many countries that are still not experiencing the high rate of digitalization in Africa. So when we look at how to improve the digitalization in Africa, there are certain factors that need to improve. Urbanization is one of them. Stock of human capital has to increase. Economic growth, foreign investment, and openness of the economy. These factors are key to increasing the rate of digitalization in Africa. For example, Kenya and Rwanda's policy for classifying ICT equipment as capital goods with zero import duties has helped in improving digitalization in this country. So we need such policies in Africa in order to foster the increased rate of growth of digitalization. So let's look at the theoretical framework, which emphasizes the system theory and the interdependence and interrelationship among various parts within the organization, whether external or internal. To achieve high quality, flexibility, productivity, all production units within the entire production chain and beyond need to be in harmony. That's why the system holistic theory perspective is important. The system perspective requirement of the digitalization process implies a holistic view of strategies, processes, operations, and information technology systems. The idea is that the malfunctioning of any part of the whole affects negatively the other aspects of the system, whereas the perfect working condition of the different parts of the system will also have positive implications on the system as a whole. Still on the theoretical framework, if you consider the traditional operational performance indicators, which are delivery, quality, cost, and flexibility, in order for this to be achieved, I mean, positive delivery, quality, cost, and flexibility, then there must be harmony between the processes, between the business models, and every other important factors within a firm's process. So robotics or automation as technologies that promote digitalization in place of the use of manual workers in manufacturing firms, production processes will achieve the result of the higher speed of production, faster output, lower rework, better ability to meet customers' changing requirements, and better quality. So when organization adopts the use of robotics or automation, which are forms of digitalization, then manufacturing firms can achieve these great and positive results. Firms with automated processes have flexible production systems that can accommodate changing customers' requests or needs, last-minute orders, and product customization. That is, the use of increased digitalization in manufacturing will improve flexibility of such an organization that imbibes the use of digitalization. So when there is increase in quality, when there is reduced cost, when there is increased flexibility and the likes, there is a positive implication on customer service and eventually customer satisfaction. If we look at this theoretical framework, you can see the operational systems within the firm. You can see the impact of the digitalization, which we could attribute as a moderating factor and also mediating factor at the same time. And it has a positive effect on the operational performance, which is delivery, quality, cost, and flexibility. And when all these are improved, it has a way of having positive impact on customer service and eventually customer satisfaction. So the summary, in short, a digitalized manufacturing firm has a higher propensity to be flexible, more efficient, has better speed because of automation, produces higher quality products, and renders qualitative services. In general, the operational performance of a firm should be enhanced through digitalization, and the overall enhanced customer service will improve customer satisfaction. So, firms in Nigeria and Africa at large should adopt the increased trend of digitalization by investing in technologies and digital skills for their workforce in order to enhance their operations, thus enhancing customers' experiences. And we also look at digitalization as more encapsulating when we compare it with digitization, because it emphasizes the holistic view of the business model, the processes, and even the supply chain and the value chain. So drawing from the system theory, holistically, a firm, whether service-oriented or manufacturing-oriented, would experience an enhanced service delivery or operational performance, respectively, compared to an establishment that is not digital and technology structured. Finally, looking at future research, an empirical assessment through the use of case study method, looking at the proposed, the aforementioned proposition from the African context in future research will be interesting. So if this study can be carried out further by imbibing the use of case study as an empirical study, then it will make the study to be more broad and more interesting. So this is the bibliography, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Moradio. Compiled study you have presented, and you started off with the basics of robotics, automation. You spoke about digital transformation and Internet of Things, IoT. And I agree with you completely with regard to digital divide. It also exists in some of the Asian countries. And you also very beautifully brought, the variables like quality, cost, flexibility, and its impact on the performance, operational performance in the industry, manufacturing sector. May I have any questions from the delegates? If you have any questions, you may kindly ask Dr. Moradio. Is there anybody with any questions? Yes, Dr. Moradio, I think we should have a nice intellectual conversation within the department about this digitalization and digital transformation to enhance more. I see it, there's a lot of scope in the topic that you've discussed. Thank you very much on behalf of the chair and the entire team. I thank you for your presentation. It was indeed a wonderful input. As usual, Dr. Moradio, you rock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kalam, do you have anything to say? You have any advice? Thank you so much. Maybe call upon Dr. Rayana Budram. Thank you so much for being there, Dr. Rayana. And today she is going to speak on effect of spent coconut media on growth of sweet potato cultivated in hydroponic system. Is that right? Wow. This is something I really would like to know more about. What exactly is Dr. Rayana Budram going to tell us? In a short while, we'll all get to know. You may proceed, Professor Rayana.
Thank you very much, Professor Mata.
There you go.
Good afternoon, good night to my fellow colleagues. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like to present to you all on the potential of sweet potatoes by hydroponic methods in Trinidad. And this is one of my passions, I would have to say, in agriculture. And of course, I belong to the Department of Business Administration with Professor Lata and Professor Moradio. And I'm proud of that. And I'm also proud to also mesh my love for agriculture with business and focus on a lot of agribusiness studies. So thank you very much for this opportunity, everyone. The contents of my presentation are as follows: a review of the literature behind hydroponics, the objectives of the study, the hypotheses, methodology, results, conclusion, and references. So kindly allow me to introduce to you the sweet potato. So the sweet potato, Kumara, is basically ranked as the 7th most important root crop in the world. The plant was initially discovered by the Chivwan, who are the influenced people from the 3000 year BC. So reports suggest that it was cultivated in the regions for many centuries before it moved to Africa and then introduced to Europe in the 16th century. Today, the sweet potato is amongst the largest cultivated crop, especially in the tropics. The world's largest producer is in Asia, where China produces more than 80% of the world's population. Here in the Caribbean, every island produces sweet potato. However, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Jamaica, they are ranked in the top production. So sweet potato thrives on fertile sandy loams, and it is with well-drained soils with a pH of 5.6 to 6.6. The propagations are done via slips. It is an efficient, low production cost crop, and it can be planted year-round, and hence it's so popular in Trinidad because it's one of the easier crops to maintain, and of course it can generate a high amount of production cost. There are over 400 different varieties in the world, and due to its high nutritional content and antioxidant elements such as beta-carotene, ascorbic acid, and many more, which protects against heart diseases and cancers, sweet potato is really mostly the staple food crop, as stated, the 7th in the entire world. So despite being such an important crop, there are many production issues. In Trinidad in particular, we face poor soils, fertilizer management, and extreme effects of climate change, such as droughts and floodings. One of the major issues that plague sweet potato would be the sweet potato weevil or the Xylus formicarius here in Trinidad. So with that being said, hydroponics is defined as the method of growing crops without the use of soil. And it involves basically the use of a mineral solution instead of soil, and the use of a soluble fertilizer rather than a granular fertilizer. Hydroponics is not new to our century. It has existed long before. However, it is becoming very popular, and it has become very popular due to the fact that it is a climate smart technique for agricultural practices. In hydroponics, plant roots are either directly exposed to the nutrient solution, directly or indirectly in different growth media, such as vermiculite and perlite and many more. So hydroponics offer a faster way of growing crops, an efficient way of growing crops, and of course, protection from the harsh effects of climate change. There are 6 major types of hydroponic systems, and I'll just briefly run through them. The graphics are very small, please pardon. So the first time would be the wicking system. And in the wicking system, it basically involves the attachment of a wick to the growth chamber, and the other end is connected to the nutrient solution, where the roots of the plants are attached to the wick, and it feeds off of the nutrient solution that transfers up through the wick. The second is the ebb and flow, where the nutrient solution is ebbed and flowed as stated, or it's submerged and released back into the reservoir. We have the drip system, and in the drip system, there are 2 types. There's a drip recirculating and a drip non-recirculating system. And for purposes of this study, the drip non-recirculating system was utilized. There's a deep water culture system where the roots are submerged into an aerated solution of the nutrient mix. There is also the nutrient film technique system, which I must state is the most popular here in Trinidad, where we have growth channels where it's placed at an angle so that gravity allows the constant circulating of the nutrient solution in the PVC channel or the growth channel. And then finally, there's the aeroponics system, which is not so popular yet in Trinidad and the Caribbean due to its high cost. However, it is very technologically advanced, and slowly but surely, I do believe that this is the next step as we proceed into modern agricultural technologies here in Trinidad. So just to recap, some of the challenges that we really do face here in Trinidad and Tobago would be pest and disease. Of course, as we know, we have lots of water shortages, squatting. Larceny, of course, is a huge problem here in Trinidad, and the high impacts of climate change in agriculture, including, again, flooding, droughts, fires, soil erosion, and pests and diseases. So furthermore, with labor in the agricultural sector constantly declining, the youths in Trinidad, they're hardly choosing agriculture as an option, and we need to find I would have to say, innovative ways to encourage youth in agriculture here in Trinidad. So hence the objective of this study was to determine the suitability of coconut coir as a growth medium for hydroponic production of sweet potato. 2, to evaluate the response of various sweet potato varieties in a drip hydroponic system using an organic hydroponic growth media from coconut. And to analyze the potential of a drip hydroponic system with an organic coconut growth media as a method for production which prevents the infestation of the #1 pest of sweet potato in Trinidad, Xylus formicarius, and then to investigate the farmers' willingness to use hydroponics to grow sweet potatoes as compared to traditional methods. I must also mention that sweet potatoes were never grown hydroponically here in Trinidad or any particular root crop. It is something that has been shied upon, and hence this study rose a lot of awareness as to how hydroponics can be utilized for root crop production. So my hypotheses were as such. We looked at the distribution of tuber fresh weight across categories of treatments, the distribution of vine length in the same across, well, basically across the different treatments. We looked at the vine fresh weight, and sorry, I believe I missed a slide. Right, the distribution of tuber numbers across categories. And we also looked at if farmers believe that hydroponics could also be a cost-effective approach to grow crops as compared to the traditional method. So one of the I would have to say the problems here in Trinidad as well when it comes to hydroponics is the high cost of growth media. Hence, with this study, we utilize coconut coir. And coconuts are basically discarded, I would have to say, on a daily basis by the thousands here in Trinidad because, of course, of our climate. We are a very much big host for the growing of coconuts within Trinidad and in the Caribbean. And there is no really use or commercial use of the coconuts because we can now get the coconut coir and different byproducts of coconuts. So hence this study utilized the actual creation of the hydroponic growth media by composting the coconut coir. So for the methodology, we developed a hydroponic system as stated, a drip non-recirculating hydroponic system. A hydroponic setup where a 50% shade house was constructed to host the drip to waste system, and the development of the coconut coir was done. And we have an image here from the study where the coconuts were collected from various coconut vendors throughout the country. A machine which utilizes the use of high technology blades to crush the coconuts and to shred them into coir was also utilized, and the shredded coconut was then composted as a method of, I would have to say, upscaling or upcycling of the coconut. So for the facilitation of the fertigation, which was the fertilizers used in the nutrient solution, 30-gallon tubs were used, a submersible pump, and of course polytubing, microtubing for the actual design of the hydroponic system. The experiment was set up into 3 plots, a control, treatment 1 and treatment 2. Treatment 1 consisted of 21 5-gallon pots similar to treatment 2 and treatment 3. However, treatment 1 control, we had this treatment replicating traditional agricultural practices. Treatment 2 replicating hydroponic practices, however, without the use of the coconut coir, and treatment 3 being the full hydroponic replication for the planting of the sweet potatoes. We utilized 3 popular varieties of sweet potatoes that is utilized in Trinidad and the Caribbean, which would have been the white chicken foot, purple potato, and TIS 9191. So the slips were planted, and of course, we can see here some images of the entire setup. A fertigation sheet was derived for the formulation of the exact formula for the hydroponic setup for the growth of the sweet potatoes. This sheet was given from one fellow student from the University of the Western East, Senegassen, who was studying actual fertigation methodologies for hydroponics. So he was able to derive this fertigation sheet for the experiment. The data collection.
Quite interesting, Dr. Budran. I think you should share this with the management team to look forward and engage further. I just wanted to remind you we have 5 minutes more
Sure,
for
noted.
your session.
Noted.
Quite
Thank you.
interesting, very interesting. I
Thank
really
you.
love to hear more. Yeah.
Thank you. For the methodology, we looked at eight different factors: vine length, number of leaves, vine fresh weight, vine dry weight, tuber fresh weight, tuber dry weight, and incidence of pest and disease. And I'm just going straight on to the results, where we can see that there was a significant difference between vine fresh weight amongst the treatments, where we can see that there was a higher vine fresh weight, yes, from treatment 1. However, treatment 2 gave excellent results as compared to the control. We also saw that in vine fresh weight, there was also significant difference, as well as in tuber fresh weight and tuber dry weight. When it came to the responses, we collected surveys from 22 farmers, and we can actually see that it was very well distributed throughout the country. Hence, we gave a good study, a good experiment, I would have to say. And overall, we saw that there was high perceptions of hydroponics. So farmers were willing to now switch over based on the results obtained from the study from traditional agricultural practices for sweet potato growth to hydroponic sweet potato growth. So there was high willingness as compared to when we compare traditional practices to now this new method of growing root crops. And I will just briefly go on to the conclusion. So the growth of sweet potatoes by hydroponic methods in Trinidad, it does have vast potential, since the results indicate that growing sweet potatoes hydroponically is just as effective as growing traditionally, with many more benefits, such as climate control, pest and disease management, and of course, easy harvesting and maintenance of the system. Harvesting and maintenance was very important as well, and post-management storage, because we found that the shelf life for the sweet potatoes that were produced hydroponically were also very much higher than the sweet potatoes produced traditionally. So in conclusion, farmers do believe that hydroponics could be a cost-effective application to growing crops, and they are willing to try the method. And thank you very much. These are my references.
In fact, we need to thank you, Dr. Professor Budran, because you brought a new concept to us, to our table, like hydroponics. I didn't know more about this. After your explanation, I came to know, and I started imagining the hot sweet potato on my plate. It's quite interesting. I think we should go ahead, have more thoughts on how to merge agricultural management. And I completely agree with you when you said we have to bring the younger generation into this field more and more, because it makes us more self-reliant. A very good contribution. May I ask our delegates if they have any question, for this particular presentation by Ms. Raina Budram? Anyone who has any questions?
One comment.
Yes, Dr. Kalam.
I think it was a very beautiful talk. I really like the idea of using hydroponic methods, and the fact that you're using organic root, that makes it even very attractive. Using the abundance of coconuts for the fodder for this is really beautiful. It's very promising, I think, from that respect. The other thing is sweet potato. I don't know, in our region in Middle East, it's very expensive. Normal potatoes, we can get it for about 1/3 of the price of sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are increasingly popular, especially for people who want to control body inflammation and overall good health. They switch to sweet potato.
Thank you very much for that
comment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Dr. Kalam, what he says. It's really, thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation here. It was totally, different and unique. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think I am very much aligned with Professor Kalam. This is a very good research work. So if Rayana can extend the work, and I believe she did some experimental work as well.
Yes.
Invaluable, and it will add value to the research. And if somehow we can get the patenting, then it would be towards the commercialization. So I can see a lot of impactful ingredients in the research. So Rayana, if you can translate it into a project, as I mentioned earlier, we can certainly look for the funding. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, I agree.
Thank you very much. Can I just
It's
add
like,
one more comment,
it's a
colleagues?
wonderful.
Currently, can I just add one more comment? With respect to my study in hydroponics and modern agricultural technologies, I did write a project. It's called the CSIAC project, the Climate Smart Indoor Agricultural Centers project. It has been endorsed and funded by the United Nations Development Program and the government, where we are now proceeding to build hydroponic systems and different modern agricultural technologies in the prison system here in Trinidad and Tobago, and very soon we're scaling to the Caribbean.
Very good.
Wonderful.
I'm very glad.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hello,
absolutely. I see. Yeah, I see a lot of potential in her project, Doctor. Yeah. Yeah, the true. So I think you should visualize and put them in a video so that we could share it with the students, and you could show some visuals of the experiments that you did. It's such a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. On behalf of the chair and the entire team, I thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. Yeah. So maybe call upon our enthusiastic, eminent speaker, Professor Cicely Roberto Clayton. My good friend, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. And the topic that she would be discussing with us is the impact of globalization on the world order, threat or opportunity. Interesting. I'm sure you're going to take us to a very debatable, end. It's a threat or opportunity, the impact of globalization. I think we added this as a course in our curriculum as well. So here we have, ladies and gentlemen, the last presenter of today's conference, Professor Cicely Roberto Clayton. The floor is yours, madam.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And as the last presenter, I know everybody is very tired. It has been a very long day. And we have gone through so many topics, so many varied topics, that this one comes from left field. But I'd like to think that my topic ties in with everything that was talked about. We're talking about the world economic order, globalization. Globalization covers so many areas, trade, including pandemics. Without globalization, we wouldn't have a pandemic. And we had talked so much about the COVID-19 pandemic. And the world economic order is present with us. It's something that we have to grapple with in all aspects of life. So I'm hoping that my presentation will not be irrelevant. And I'm going to be very, very quick, very short, so that lagging energies will not be strained. Now, the purpose of my presentation really is to throw out a challenge to developing countries from where most of, if not all, participants in this conference originate. The challenge is to find a way to navigate around the roadblocks that are inherent in the world economic order as it now stands, and also in how globalization has been operating. So, not surprisingly, both things are stacked against the developing world in favor of the developed countries. Now, I'm hoping that I have share screen. Let me go to my presentation. Can you see?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's just 9 slides, so it won't take long. Now, I start with definitions. Globalization is almost like a buzzword these days. Everybody talks about globalization, but what really is it? So let me try a definition. It is merely the process by which, wait, hold on a bit. Yeah, it's a process by which the world has become more and more interconnected as a result of greatly increased trade, cultural exchanges, and of course, the explosion in communications technology. Now, globalization has been taking place for hundreds and hundreds of years, you know, going back to the early era before Christ. But in the last 50 years, it has accelerated tremendously as a result of improvements in transportation, freer trade between countries, the availability of cheaper labor, And of course, as I said before, the massive improvement in communications, which has enabled the transfer, the easy transfer of financial assets across national borders. Now, the World Economic Order, which is the other leg in the stool, I have to give you a quick explanation of that. The current World Economic Governance System has been in place since the end of the Second World War, when at the famous Bretton Woods Summit, the Allies agreed to establish institutions that we know now as the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and later on the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, which is now the WTO, which is all these institutions. The purpose was to ensure lasting peace, stability in international trade and in economic relations. Now, these systems, this World Economic Order, worked for a while, maybe about 30 years. But since the end of the Cold War, I would say towards the end of the decade of the 60s, the global economic landscape has in fact undergone profound changes. And the governance systems have simply failed to keep pace with the mounting challenges, such as, the collapse in the 1970s of the said Bretton Woods system, which had mandated fixed exchange rate. What happened was that because of the war, the Vietnam War and so on, and inflation, the US found itself printing money ready to keep pace with the high expenditure on these things. But President Richard Nixon in 1971 decided to suspend the gold standard. So they stopped pegging the US dollar to gold, and it allowed the major currencies to float their exchange rates against each other. So in fact, that stability that was mandated by the gold standard fell apart. And then you had in 1973, the fallout from oil price, the crisis after the Yom Kippur War, you will recall, in 1973, and the OPEC countries decided to increase the cost of petrol, and that created a huge crisis because the whole world, mainly the developed world, were literally caught with their pants down because they never anticipated that this would happen. So that created quite a big crisis. And then they had the balance of payments difficulties encountered by many countries, particularly the developing countries. Now, the International Monetary Fund started a facility they call structural adjustment, which I'm sure resonates with all of us, to give balance of payment support to the developing countries, their developing country partners. The problem with this structural adjustment facility was that it had a prescriptive one-size-fits-all solution, which mostly mandated devaluations. And the rationale for that was that with a cheaper exchange rate or lower exchange rate against the mighty dollar, your exports would become more competitive, and that would help to balance your economy. But in truth and in fact, in countries such as mine, Jamaica, where we have a very high import content, the devaluations didn't help. The devaluations didn't make us more competitive. In fact, what it did, it just created untold hardship because of inflation and so on. And once you have a lower value, we have to buy things. Since we had a very high import content, the economic difficulties became even more pronounced. And it led even to the collapse of several governments, i.e., for example, the Michael Manley government in the 1970s. The other problem was a spiraling series of devaluation in other countries, which led to inflation and untold difficulties. So they didn't really think. Now, globalization affects not only trading goods, but trading services. It also causes a rapid spread of infectious diseases, as I mentioned before. We've been talking very much in today's conference on the effects of the pandemic. And in today's world, globalization contributes to another disease, which is a rapid spread of misinformation, also known as fake news. Because of all these social media and a lot of the resistance to the vaccinations that have taken place in our countries is as a result of all these conspiracy theories that have been going amok through these social media platforms. But anyway, services such as education transcends national borders now with the improvements in telecommunications. So in fact, there are good, hold on, I think I missed a slide because it's not being logical here, hold on. I think I missed a slide. I wanted to talk more about, okay, no. Sorry. All right, no, what I wanted to say was that there are good as well as negative effects of globalization. Some of the good ones are like what has happened in education. I think one of the speakers earlier mentioned that because of the pandemic, virtual platforms, virtual teaching methods have become the norm. And I fully agree with that. Telemedicine is another service that has benefited from globalization. So the virtual classroom, virtual conference room really is the name of the day these days. The result is a smaller, more connected world, bringing with it, however, some additional shared risks. So the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the pros and cons of globalization, both in the initial protectionist national responses, which I mentioned, the fake news, the conspiracy theories, and so on, and in the failure of the global community to unite in effecting global solutions. Because remember, as I mentioned earlier, the global economic order that we have been accustomed to, where the transnational corporations dominate, they can, because of their power and their influence and their resources, most of them are in fact based in the developed countries with subsidiaries and satellite firms in the developing countries. They are able to influence the agenda, and they are able to flout international laws that would govern things like the environment protection and so on. So the development of the vaccines, for example, they revert to their knee-jerk reaction that we have to protect our intellectual property without realizing that unless they share the technology and make sure that vaccines can be produced across the globe, they themselves will not be fully protected. You can protect only to, so much to a certain degree. But if the whole world in this era of globalization where nobody is an island, and if the rest of the world are exposed, then you too are exposed, right? So, however, a lot of people are saying, globalization is going to be reversed because people have reacted so strongly to the pandemic, and this is the end of an era. I don't think so. I don't think so. Because in fact, it will not only survive, but it might become even more vibrant as new sectors will emerge, such as the digital services, AI, and the green economy. Royana's presentation just before mine, talking about hydroponics, is one such green economy. We are going in a new direction, and I think a better direction. I think there exists a serious opportunity now for the developing countries to jumpstart, to jump over all our disadvantages that we started with, and to carve out niche markets in these new sectors, so we can move even further away from being seen as hewers of wood and drawers of water. We just provide cheap labor and raw materials, and the value added goes to the developed countries where the transnational corporations are headquartered. I see this era of globalization after COVID-19 as an opportunity that we must grasp. For example, one of the services crying out for developing country attention is the area of cryptocurrencies, which has the potential of really upending the old economic order as we understand it. So basically, I'm saying that we should look at it not as a threat, but as an opportunity. The World Economic Order has been with us for these past 70 odd years. And we have tried, I know in the 70s, when I was a diplomat, we tried very hard to convince them. Remember those arguments about the new international order, NIEO, North and South-South trade? We tried our very best to try to upend this imbalance, but it just never worked out, because what we're doing is asking the face to cut off the nose, and you'll be better off without the nose. And it's not going to happen. It just did not go down. Plus, to be honest, one of the things that I was very disappointed about as a diplomat, when we relied so heavily on the petroleum producing countries to help us. But they were a part of the group of 77 developing countries, and they had surplus funds because after the 1973 oil crisis, they had mega bucks. And we said to the petroleum producing countries, look, this is an opportunity that we should not miss. You are in a position to finance things like the common fund, like insurance, because without insurance, without export insurance, trade is not going to happen. To finance things like shipping. These are the inputs of world international trade, which the developed countries control. And until we have an edge into that world, we will never be able to catch up. But it never happened. The petroleum producing countries, members of the group of 77, prefer to invest their surplus dollars in the very same developed countries, and they use that investment to protect themselves against any future petroleum shocks. So what they did, they used those funds to invest in things like alternate power plants, nuclear plant development, and so on. And we were left high and dry. So I'm saying that here is another opportunity presented by this COVID-19 and a new trend in globalization where new sectors are emerging for us to jump on the bandwagon and try to overcome our natural disadvantage. So I think there is enough potential for us to talk about this further, but this is just a little snippet. But I thank you for your attention. I think my conclusion, I just said the current order and recent trends in globalization have largely benefited the developed countries and maintained the status quo of their dominance in trade and goods, as well as in services. But the aftermath of the pandemic, with the interruptions in supply, presents an opportunity for us to jump ahead and let the systems work in our favor. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you indeed very much, Professor Clayton. I like and I really appreciate the optimistic approach that you have. You have, in fact, clearly brought the essence of impact of globalization on the world economic order. You also spoke about the structural adjustment facility. And I really like the way you've been optimistic by saying this, yes, it is an opportunity. And to end with such a beautiful talk, I should really thank our Professor Clayton for contributing, such a wonderful idea. And I'm sure we will take this forward, for a further research. I don't know how much I should thank Dr. Zubair Kalam for having been with us, patient to be there till the end. And Dr. Wajid Khan, salute you for being there. And Habiba, sweetheart, my angel, thank you so much for a wonderful support that you've given the IT team who's listening to me. You are behind the scenes doing everything, coordinating. I'm not able to see you, dear IT team. Salute you for all your wonderful, support that you've given. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Dr. Clayton. Really, indeed, it's a wonderful presentation.
You are most welcome.
Dr. The CEO, Honorable CEO, sir, you've been very patient. You are number one in NSRIC, but still you are with us towards the end to show that you stand by us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
I
much.
wish
Thank you. We
thank
did
you,
it.
Professor
That's a
Lopez, for
wonderful slide,
energizing us.
Habiba. Thank you.
Because
Thank you so
your
much.
sharing the session has really energized us. That's fantastic
Oh.
sharing of the session.
Thank you.
May I ask
Wonderful,
a question to
wonderful sharing.
Professor Clayton?
Yeah, sorry. If you have any questions for Dr. Clayton, I'm sorry. Dr. Clayton,
Yes, I'm here.
if the audience, if the delegates have any questions for you.
The question is, let's say in the beginning of the human civilization, people were trading by goods and services. Let's say you do this work, I will be doing this work. You give me
Barter system.
I will, yeah. And then the world economy were experiencing trading by, let's say, silver coins, gold coins, and so on. And then later on, paper money. Now it came paperless, like and so on. Now,
Cryptocurrency.
the last one is now cryptocurrency. And some of my real friends, actually, they are every day pushing me towards this business, and I am still in my chair. So how do you evaluate this involvement of this trading? And what do you see the impact of cryptocurrency, though it is becoming really a very lucrative when it comes to the share?
Yes, well, I think it's something that is worthwhile exploring, because I'm not too sure myself if it goes beyond simply exploitative type of quick money. Remember the dot-coms? Back in the early 2000s, the dot-coms was a hot thing, and then it collapsed. So it is yet to be seen if this is just another fad that will go away, but I suspect that it isn't. I suspect that the cryptocurrency will, in fact, in time, replace paper money. It's now a new development, and I think it behoves us to get to understand what it's about and make sure that we stay ahead of the game. I'm not saying that I'm really willing to invest in it myself tomorrow, but I think it is important. It's very important that we get to understand what it is about, and we have to do some forecasting to make sure that we understand it and that we can take full advantage down the road.
Absolutely. And provided we know that there is a proper governance in place, proper control in place, like proper monitoring in place, then we can, full-fledged get down to cryptocurrency and says, yes, we can do this. But then if you don't know where the governance come from, who's monitoring, who's the watchdog, and how things are moving, and the transparency, if it's lacking, then I think it's little fearful for us to venture into such new things, which is completely crashed, and you may not know what's happening, right? If there's a governance in place, yes, we could go ahead with it. So that was a wonderful question, Professor, and very well answered. Professor Clayton, thank you so much. Is there anybody else with any questions?
No, I just want to comment. I feel really honored to listen to Professor Clayton, because we have, it's wonderful to see so many thinking people as part of NSRIC. We think from so many different strands. That is a blessing for all of us. blessing for me. I've learned so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
On
sir.
behalf of the chairperson, on behalf of the conference chair and the entire team and delegates, I thank you very much, Professor Clayton, and all the delegates for having been here. We have with us our conference chair as well here, Professor Muhammad Alam, here to bless us. He was there in the beginning. He's there towards the end.
Still around. Do you want to say
You're
anything?
muted. You're muted. Professor, you're muted. Professor?
Sorry, thank you. Thank you so much, my dear. I was just trying to listen to you, the beginning and end and the middle, the way you capture and the way you summarize the everybody's talk. I really appreciate it. It makes me very happy, and then we all are enlightened and to get you. And you see, unthinkable that Zawahir Kalam, you see, people are perhaps sleeping in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and he is still with us. I can just see inside his eyeglass the light of sleeps. You see, it is very surprising. You see, this is what the uniqueness of the conference. As we are surrounded around the globe, somebody is sleeping and somebody is talking. We are now 16 people now. So because the half of the world is sleeping now, so we are here, and I'm so thankful to you, because for you, I think you're in India, or not in
At the moment, yeah. It's
so-
2:15 a.m. early in the
you
morning.
see, can you imagine now? When you say 2:15 a.m., I feel sleepy, you see, but you are awake and you are giving the light to the conference. May God
God's
bless all
grace.
of you, those who have left and those who are here. I thank all of our beloved ones to make this day successful, and we have learned a lot. You see, knowledge, the learning has no end. We have learned a lot. We are all waiting for tomorrow. I welcome all of you tomorrow to come. And I thank you again, our moderators and our all technical peoples and then organizers and our CU and all the people who supported to make this day successful. Thank you so much. May Lord bless you.
May I request to stay for 2-3 minutes, BPs and
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
BPs and ABPs, including Habiba, please.
Yeah, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
God
God
bless
bless
you.
you. Have a
Thank you,
nice
Dr.
sleep.
Clayton.
Have a nice day. Nice
Right.
good sleep.
Thank
Good night,
you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.